Here it is. This is my 10 weeks. This is my 10 weeks of weight loss. And what you guys can hopefully see is that I've totally nerded out. I went a little bit crazy. I've got a hectic graph, and I'm going to explain that whole thing in a minute. But you guys have seen my whiteboard. I do have a couple of posts on my profile where it kind of explains the way that it works. But let me just give you the basics. Super simple. I don't make this complicated. I've done that before. I've made this super duper complicated, and I can't be consistent with it, and I don't like that. I like something that sets me up for success. So that's why I literally only have like macros, and that's not even really macros. That's just calories at the moment because I'm not setting targets. And then training. So I've done like the sleep and the reading and the meditating and the stretching, and it just was too much. It was like hectic. It was pressure. I didn't like it because what happened was I ended up with a whole lot of crosses, and all I could focus on was how I was failing instead of seeing more ticks because I know that I can accomplish those things. So macros or calories is the pink ticks. Training is the blue ticks. So a rest day is a cross, or a day that I've gone over my calories or just eaten really bad quality food, that's a cross. So what I've done is gone through every single day, and I give myself a tick for training and a tick for calories. And then I weigh myself. I weigh myself on average 4 to 5 times a week, and then I calculate my average weight for the week. And the way that I do that is I either add up my weight across the number of times that I weighed myself and then divide it by that number. So if I weighed myself 4 times, I add up those 4 weigh-ins and then I divide it by 4. If I weighed myself 7 times, I add up those 7 weigh-ins and I divide it by 7. You can also jump a line and use like a mean calculator or an average calculator. They're really easy to find. So I did that with my weight for every week, and then I also did that with my average calorie intake. And that's been something that I've done pretty differently this time. Normally, I'm super specific around like, hey, I'm going to hit protein and fat and carbs. This time I had a protein target and I had a calorie target. The first few weeks it was around 2,800, and then I dropped down to about 2,500, and then I just got busy with life, and I just kind of was working around that 2,400 mark because it was just what I was naturally eating. So I just let myself do that. But you can also see like this past week, it's bumped up. I just got hungry. I wanted to eat out, and I was enjoying a few more treats than normal. So it's increased, which is fine. So I've just worked off the average. Okay, so let's have a look at my little graph, and I'll try and get it into some sun. So end result is, I just have to laugh at this for a moment because this is kind of insane and ridiculous, but hopefully this is helpful. So kgs is the pink line and calorie intake is the blue line. What you can see is that my kilos or my weight goes down as my calories are actually increasing a little bit. And then I dropped. I told you guys I just got busy. I wasn't eating as much. I was it just wasn't happening. But my weight actually increased. But why did it increase? Have a look down at that pink line. So I ovulated around that week. So I see an increase. And obviously I'm now in my luteal phase, which is the week before your period. And you will often see yourself retaining a little bit of water. So I see this little bump up in my weight. That pink line does a whoop up that way. Then what happened in week 6 was I saw this massive drop off. It happens to coincide with the week after my period. But you can also see that the couple of weeks prior to that was when I'd stopped eating as much. So my calorie intake was kind of lower anyway. So it's kind of not surprising that happened. But then you can kind of see that it's still trending down, but it's just been steady. And that's what my calories have been. They've been pretty steady. They have been lower, so I'm expected to see that continue to trend down. Until this week, it went up. But the week that I increased, my weight was still decreasing down. Why? Probably because I finished my period last week. I'm feeling super lean this week. Like I'm waking up and I'm like, I can feel, like see my abs. Like I feel awesome because I'm in that follicular phase now in the first 2 weeks of my cycle. So it's just such an interesting relationship when you start connecting those dots. Like that's a really fun thing to do, and you start to learn about your body, which is so fucking cool because you make sense of it all. Like this stuff gets really frustrating when you see an increase or your weight isn't moving, and then you can figure out like, oh hey, I ovulated last week, I'm a week out from my period, no wonder I'm gonna see a spike. And then, hey, there's probably going to be a drop down afterwards, which is really cool to kind of like just know is going to happen. And you can kind of play that game of like, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? And you just become curious about your weigh-ins, and you know that one day of weigh-ins or one day of overeating your calories really doesn't make a big difference because it's what happens on average over 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks. So if you have a look at my totals here, in 10 weeks, I only lost 3 kilos, but it's actually pretty significant. And I'm going to try and take some before after photos, which I don't like, but I just want you to see what 3 kilos looks like when we're looking at like hey, where was I there and where am I now here after losing 3 kilos? But not a lot, like 10 weeks, that's 2.5 months. So that's a lot of time and dedication for, 3 kilos. So you just kind of keep going. You really do just have to put your head down, bum up, and just go. You're not going to lose 5 kilos in 6 weeks. Like that marketing is fucking bullshit. So we just have to remember that stuff's a myth, and what you're going to go through is going to be very different. My average was 300 grams per week, which again is not significant, but it didn't work out like 300 grams per week. You've seen the pink line. It was like blah, blah, blah. So what happened was the first month and a bit, I only lost 1 kilo. The first month and a bit. It was 5 weeks. I lost 1 kilo. That's nothing. So really easy for people to get in like their first month and be like, man, what's going on? I've been doing all this work. Imagine if I'd stopped. Week 6, I lost 1.5 kilos. If I'd stopped, like I would have never had that happen. Okay, we don't know what would have happened. And then again, week 7 to 8, 0.5 kilos. It's like 3 weeks, nothing happening. But I was eating more and my weight was still going down. That's kind of cool. I got my period and I'm feeling really lean now because I've finished it and I'm in my follicular phase. So what's going to happen week 10 to 15 or week 11 to 15? I'm probably going to see a little bit of a drop. Then when I ovulate, it's probably going to spike back up again, right? Because I've seen this trend where I get a little spike, and when I ovulate, I'll get a little spike. And that's that week out from my period, right? Where suddenly it's probably going to keep going up because I am about to get my period. So that's 10 weeks. That's what it looks like, at least for me. And if you guys can start looking at your average weight and your average calorie intake and start looking at the data and getting interested in it, this whole journey, this whole process is so much more enjoyable. I promise you, because it becomes an experiment and it becomes really, really interesting. So I'm going to flip that camera. Oh, there we go. Hi. Hello. It's really warm in here, which is why my cheeks are so pink. I've got like the sun on my face. I have my heater on because Melbourne has been freezing. But yeah, that is 10 weeks. So I want you guys to see that, to look at the numbers and to be able to interpret them and be able to like find the patterns and look at the trends, because that is what is important. When you eat and the way that you behave and the way that the choices that you make with your lifestyle put you on a trajectory. It's not about the results that you have right this very second. It's about what you're doing consistently over time that's going to put you on a trajectory either towards your goals or away from your goals. So what you do every now and again, that's not really important. It's what you're doing most of the time. So where to from here? I'm going to wipe that whole thing off, right? I'm going to wipe my board down. So I'm going to keep my little table, and I'm just going to, I think I'm going to probably do another 10 weeks. Like I kind of like that amount of time. It also means that I don't have to redo that whiteboard as often, and I like seeing the ticks, collect up. So probably do another 10 weeks. Now, do I want to continue to lose weight? I'm feeling really good right now. Like this past week, everything in the gym clicked. I felt really strong. I felt really good. I was performing really well. So I'm pretty happy with like just generally how I feel in the gym in terms of my weight and my composition. I kind of want to get back under 75. Like that's where I've been for competition, and that's where I feel really good. And what's nice at the moment is we don't have any competitions coming up. Obviously the season's been a little bit different, so it's like it's really great to just be kind of doing this process without having like a date where you are working towards, and then after that it's like, fuck it. So it's nice to just kind of be going to, there's no end point, there's no like definitive like goal that I'm working towards in terms of a date, so I'm kind of just rolling with it. So maybe aim for under 75. But here's the thing, whenever you were losing weight, I know that sometimes we have those numbers, we have a goal in mind, and it's like it could be just some arbitrary number. Sometimes it's way too light for what we should really be, and like I know that it's very easy to be like, I want to be 70 kilos. Like that's always kind of been that number for me, and I don't really know why. It's just, it is that number. But if you need to lose weight, you just need to focus on the first kilo. Like this, my average this week was 76.4. All I need right now is to get under 76, and then when I'm under 76, the only thing I'm worrying about is trying to get under 75. Like, that is it. That is all you need to focus on. And each week I'm just going to get a little closer, and it might be 500 grams, it might be 200 grams, it might not even go down, but it's like that's the way that I chunk up those goals, those big things that is going to take months. This is 10 weeks. I'm about to do another 10 weeks. It's like that adds up to a lot of time. So chunking it up is really important. You want to have little steps that helps you. As there's been a really cool anecdote I've seen floating around the internet, helps you eat the elephant, right? Eating an elephant is a very daunting, overwhelming task. How do you do it? You break it up into small pieces. So I hope that helps. I will save that. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday, fam.